In today's episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast, we preview the big time road matchup the Hawks have this weekend, traveling down to Oklahoma State in Stillwater. We will go through the headlines heading into the game, talk about some of the matchups, our keys to victory, and of course, our game predictions.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
And welcome into the KC Sports Authority podcast. I, of course, am your host, Keegan Russell, and with me again, my guy, JB. JB, we have a big-time matchup. The Hawks are 5-1. They are sitting here ranked once again, number 23 in the country, with a big-time matchup on the road, heading down to Stillwater for another Big 12 matchup against the 3-2 Oklahoma State Cowboys. This is a team that we have struggled against for the last 15 years. We have not won in Stillwater since, I think it was 2007. So there's a lot to get into. First, though, before we do that, just as a reminder, you guys can find the podcast over on Spotify and YouTube. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, whether you're watching here on YouTube or listening on Spotify. And, of course, we always appreciate the support you guys are giving us. You can also hit us up on all of our social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. All right, so game preview, KU versus Oklahoma State. Like we said, big-time road matchup for the Hawks. Again, they have not won in Stillwater since 2007, back in that Orange Bowl run. It's been a tough place for us to play. 2 years ago, we got the snot beat out of us, like 55-3, and, of course, that was a very different-looking KU team. Last year, we crushed them at home. To go bowling, so we get a fun opportunity to do that. So let's get into the game headlines before we break this down. I know you guys, I love that Jalen Daniels intro, but of course, here we are another week where Jalen is part of the major headline, not for a good reason. So the first headline I want to get in here is the quarterback stability, or you could say instability for a second there.
Sure.
On both sides, Jalen's been hurt. He hasn't played in several games. There's been no official word. Very unlikely he plays this weekend. So for me, the stability headline here is Jason Bean under center again with another full week of practice. He is the starter. There's no question about it. All the game plans designed around him. So that's the first kind of headline for this game. And then, of course, on the other side of the ball or other side of the field, Oklahoma State has also had their own instability throughout the season, but now they are finally starting to get right offensively with Alan Bowman under center. He's now been the starter a couple weeks, played pretty decent against K-State last week that we'll talk about. He's familiar with Kansas. He played at Texas Tech several years ago, so he's familiar with this team. But now both teams have a little bit of stability going into this game where both game plans for each team are fully centered on Jason Bean and Alan Bowman. So I think that's the place to start. I think that's the big thing heading this weekend. Number two, though, is this KU run game. We talked about it in our post-game recap, put up almost 400 yards last week, had two guys rush for over 100 yards with McDuffie getting close to 100, 5 rushing touchdowns. Hishaw and Neal currently are the number one running back duo in the nation, just over 1,000 combined yards. So that's impressive. So KU run game is huge. That's, of course, going to be a major talking point as we break down some of the keys to the game later. But KU run game versus Oklahoma State defense, that's going to be a major headline. Can KU replicate what they did last week and control the game, or can Oklahoma State slow us down? And, of course, my final headline going into this game is KU's 5-1. One more victory, and we're back to bowling for the second season in a row, which is the first time in school history, which is nuts. And we can do it by beating Oklahoma State again. Last year, we beat Oklahoma State at home to become bowl eligible. And I remember that game because everyone rushed onto the field and tore the goalpost down and went crazy. And we have a chance to do that again this year, just on the road. So those are my headlines coming into the game. JB, as we get into this matchup with Oklahoma State, what are some of the first reaction thoughts you have looking into this matchup?
This one is so interesting to me because I think these are two very good teams that are going at it. And I think despite the Texas loss, I'm going to say it, these are two teams that for both Kansas and Oklahoma State that are peaking at the right time. I know that has been some instability, right, with the quarterback play, but the reason I choose the words peaking at the right time is because Kansas knows who they are regardless of their quarterback. They know their game, they know what their strengths are, and we've talked at length about how Jason Bean is absolutely a starter in so many programs. So the fact that we're using Jason Bean in this game is a non-factor for me in terms of determining if we've got a shot. We absolutely have a shot, and we had a heck of a game against UCF. It boosted our confidence following the Texas game, and outside of that, I mean, our run game is still what it is. Our defense still is what it is, and both of those things pretty darn good. So I think we're peaking at the right time. Oklahoma State, on the other hand, they started with some instability, yes, but they've settled in with Bowman. And I'm looking at this team that just took down K-State. And you
Yeah,
can
that
say
was an
what you want
impressive
about,
win.
yeah, like say what you want about K-State. I think the general consensus is K-State is a darn good team. And I'm not going to sit here as a KU fan and just call them the worst and just ridicule K-State. No, K-State's a good team. Majority of people think that they will beat us this season. I personally don't, and I hope they don't, obviously.
I think KU's going to be
Um,
the favorite. I mean, you have to say KU's the favorite in that game. I know we're still
by
several
the
weeks out, but
Yeah, by the time we get there, we could be favored, especially because it's a home game for us. All these things aside, K-State's still great. They're toward the top of the Big 12. That was a huge win for Oklahoma State. Um, they are peaking at the right time. I think they're putting those weird losses behind them. I think, Iowa State's not turning out to be so bad either. So it's kind of like you throw out that South Alabama game, and this is looking like a pretty South Alabama's good, but they're not like D1 like Power Five good.
yeah, they
Um,
win. They did win double-digit games last year
they
in
did,
their conference.
they did. If you take that game out, and you're kind of looking at this Oklahoma State team, thinking they got a real shot. So that's really the theme for me. I think the last episode I had mentioned, hey, Jason Bean, he beat them last year. Of
He
course, it was a
did.
home game for us. He was also our quarterback when we got blown to bits, 55-3 in 2021.
I think Miles Kendrick played most of that game. I might be wrong, but either way, we got smoked. We couldn't move the ball. Didn't do
We
anything.
got destroyed. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at this like, of course, 2 years ago, both teams were entirely different, in my opinion. So we can't really look at that. The historical data of us not performing very well in Stillwater, it's there, but again,
16 years. That's how long it's been since we've won in
uh,
Stillwater.
look, you know what? We've been a struggling football team for darn near 16
Yeah.
years. I'm looking at this like these are all different teams over the courses of this decade plus of kind of underwhelming football, to put it that way. And I'm looking forward to this game because these are two completely different teams from even the beginning of the season, in my opinion. I think we're both peaking at a good time. Should be a fun little dogfight.
Yeah, so let's look at Oklahoma State. What do they do well? Of course, last week they beat K-State 29-21. K-State did not have that great of a game. Will Howard, from a throwing perspective, was awful. Went 15 of 34, 152 yards, averaged 4.5 yards a pass. That's terrible. One
Oof.
touchdown, 3 interceptions. Of course, he had that long 70-yard run, which if you take that run out, then their run game wasn't anything crazy. Still rushed for 220 with that, about 150 without. So Oklahoma State's defense is not very highly ranked. They're not that great. Honestly, they're not too different from KU. KU just hasn't given up as much points and touchdowns in some of those games. But Oklahoma State, like you said, they're starting to get right. They've got some consistency with Bowman now at quarterback. He's not anything I'm scared about, but the more playing time he gets and the more consistency he has, the better he's going to be on the field, of course. The run game finally broke out last week. Ollie Gordon, 21 carries, 136 yards, and a touchdown. So that gives you a little bit to be concerned on. KU hasn't been terrible against the run, but they also haven't been super great consistently against the run. I think last week's game against UCF, those numbers are a little inflated because the game was so out of hand in the second half that, they had a couple of big chunk plays that really didn't change anything about the game, but you take those chunk plays out, KU did solid. But yeah, Oklahoma State, they're 3-2. They've had a little bit of a disappointing season. Mike Gundy teams are always solid, but you could probably say a lot of that struggle they've had is because they didn't come into the season with a solidified QB1. They've had 3 different guys under center this year. They've rotated around, but now they're getting right. So there's 2 ways to look at it. Are we catching them at the worst time because they're improving, or are we catching them at the right time because they just had a big victory and they used all that energy there?
Ooh.
We'll kind of talk about that in the victory. But yeah, they forced the turnovers against K-State, and I think if you take some of those turnovers away and better decision-making from Will Howard, K-State probably wins that game. Statistically, though, both teams, KU obviously is the more superior offense, averaging 433 yards a game versus Oklahoma State's 357. OSU rushes for 132 yards a game, KU 232, which of course that's a little bit inflated from last week's game. They do throw for more yardage than what we do, and I think that doesn't surprise me. We know Jason Bean's not the prototypical pocket passer. Defensively, honestly, these teams are almost exactly the same as far as yards allowed, rushing yards, passing yards. I think KU's got a little bit better defensive line. Not that Oklahoma State doesn't have some guys, but KU's defensive line has been pretty consistent. Austin Booker's been incredible. So it's going to be a fun game. So let's kind of get into keys to victory here. I've got several, and of course you can throw out yours too, and then debate me on these. My first key to the game is the KU pass rush. Actually, no, let's start with turnover battle. And I know that's always like the cliche answer, but turnover battle.
Sure.
Oklahoma State won last week, and they forced multiple turnovers. Usually the team that forces multiple turnovers comes out on top. Jason Bean has been pretty solid at not forcing turnovers himself. He hasn't thrown an interception this year. Between him and Hishaw, there's been a little bit of fumbling issue. But if we can prevent turnovers on offense and cause 1 or 2, which we've been pretty solid at, I think we forced a turnover every single game this year. To me, that's where it starts because you're stealing time of possession, you're stealing opportunities away, you're keeping your offense on the field, and the more possessions we get, the more we can lean into that run game. So that's my first key to victory. What is yours?
I think you're on the money. For me, I would say it's more of a mentality thing than anything. One thing I really would love to see is not taking our foot off the gas. If we get in a position where we're up by a couple scores, we need to act like it's 0-0, because if we let up, Oklahoma State is the type of team that can turn the tables quite literally, and put us up against the wall, and maybe just win the game on a last second try or at a field goal or something. I mean, if we let up a little bit, that's going to be a problem. I think in the past few games, if we've gotten a big lead, it's been great, but then we just it happened in Illinois, we still won the game. It happened in UCF, we still won the game. Yeah. But we let up. If we get a big lead, we let up. I don't want to let up against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think it's kind of been third and fourth quarter a little bit, that second half, where it's funny. First half of the year, we started out a little bit slow and then took off. And then the last 2 games, it's been get out to a good leads, offense looks solid. And then, like you said, we kind of let up a bit. So, keeping that pedal down. So for me, then that kind of leads into my next key to victory is how do we keep pressing the pedal down? Obviously, we know the run game is going to be a big part of this matchup. Devin, Neal, and Daniel Hishaw are 2 of the best in the country. They're excellent at fighting for extra yardage, picking up first downs. Devin Neal's so patient in the backfield that he finds the right holes, and then Hishaw just plows through and just takes the guy in front of him and knocks him out. But with that, my key is if the run game is established, this is a great opportunity for Jason Bean to perform with the play action. Obviously, Oklahoma State knows we're going to be running the ball, so they're going to stack the box selectively here and there. KU has a lot of movement pre snap. I'm hoping we see some of that Jason Bean play action where his decision making can show improvement. I've been very negative about his decision making this year. I think he doesn't know how to make the right reads, or he just sticks to the original play call and doesn't read the situation. So I think this is a good opportunity for him to showcase the play action, because if they're stacking the box and getting close, Luke Grimm's going to be finding some room across the middle. Mason Fairchild's going to be able to get a nice seam down the middle. So that's my next key is, can KU show up in the play action pass game to help push the offense down the field. Bean has struggled to push the ball down the field throwing it. Not that he's had to every game, but for me, that's all right. If Oklahoma State comes out and, shows a heavy run defense, can we move the ball down the field with play action to get in some more favorable sets?
I completely agree. It's one thing to be great at the run game. You got to be great at passing as well, especially when teams are expecting you to be really good at the run. And they can prepare all they want. We might still run over them, but we need to be versatile. We need to have a plethora of ways that we can take you out. I mean, Jalen Daniels, he had that. Jason Bean can have that. The best thing going for us is, like you said earlier, now he's got 2 weeks of time, knowing that he's going to be the guy, and it's going to show. I have faith that it'll show in his preparation, in our play calling, everything down the line to prepare us to maybe surprise Oklahoma State a little bit with some passing game.
I hope so, because you can't consistently win games throwing for under 100 yards a game. Now, of course, last week, very different. UCF could do nothing to stop the run, so there was no need to throw the ball that much. But Oklahoma State's not going to be like that. This is a tough road environment. And again, so this leads me into my final key to victory is, when you're in a tough road environment, you got to keep the crowd out of it. And what's one of the best ways to keep the crowd out of it defensively is to apply pressure on the quarterback. And that KU pass rush, Austin Booker's been incredible this year. He's top half of the Big 12 in sacks right now, I think, with 5. Jeremy Robinson, even though he got a little dinged up, he's incredible. Not sure if Hayden Hatcher is going to play just yet. He got dinged up last week too. But this KU defensive line has been applying fantastic pressure all season. And I think if they can continue to do that, get Bowman uncomfortable, they can probably steal some of the fan excitement away. And maybe you get a big third down stop with a sack or a first down that sets them back to, 2nd and 18 on a sack play, or force the turnovers by getting pressure on the quarterback. So for me, that's my last key is, can this defensive line apply pressure like they have been? Can they get to the quarterback, force them into some uncomfortable throws, and let, Kobe Bryant and Kenny Logan and Dotson and these linebackers do the rest and take the ball back? So that's my final key. Any other keys you have or important matchups for this game?
Important matchups, not necessarily. I guess I'm just kind of looking at Jason Bean as look, this is your time to shine. We have a big game that is a coin flip in some people's eyes. So it's just time for KU to show why we are the better team.
I agree.
We're ranked 23rd for a reason. Like, we are the better team. So let's go out there and show it.
Absolutely. So let's finish up here with game predictions. So heading into the game, you did say it's going to be kind of a nail biter. KU is currently a 3-point favorite on the road. KU, I do think, again, is the better team, so they should be favored. They're also a ranked team. They've been more consistent. Over-under set at 56. To me, when I look at predictions here, I do think it's early to control the game, or I think it's important to control the game early and get off to a good start. I think for me, it's kind of a race to 30. Who can get to 30 first? And the team that does, I think, is in the best position to win. KU's offense has shown that they can be explosive and put up numbers. Oklahoma State is capable. They haven't done it that much, but they are more than capable of getting there. So I think if KU can jump out and get to 30 first or 31 or whatever the case may be, I think they control this game. So for me, then my score prediction is KU 31, Oklahoma State 24.
That was going to be mine.
And that surpasses and covers the spread, of course.
Right. Yeah. I wish I could add to that. That was going to be mine.
It's okay to have the same prediction.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it goes to 27 for them, but yeah, I agree. I don't think we get much past 30. If we even get there, for us to get much past 30, two things need to happen. One, we need a defense or special team score, and two, we need Jason Bean to throw 1 to 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
You know, we can't get all of our touchdowns from Devin, Neal, and Daniel Hishaw. We probably will, so that kind of limits us. But yeah, like I said, we've got so much time to prepare, knowing that Jason Bean's going to be our guy for this game. We're going to go out there. We're going to show that we're the better team, and yeah, 31-24, book it.
Yeah, I feel good with this one. I think this is a chance for KU to really showcase what they're capable of. They are sitting in a prime position to go bowling again. So this is an important game for them. I think they're going to come in super focused. I think they're going to be detail oriented. I think they're going to control the tempo, protect the football. I think this defense wants to continue to prove that they can take on tougher opponents and stand up to them. So yeah, I feel good about this one. I say that, and then of course, we might sit here later and be like, oh, what the heck? That's the whole point of making predictions, of course. But yeah, KU 31-24, 31-27, 27-24, somewhere in there. I got KU covering the spread. I think this is a great opportunity again for the defense to show up big, for Jason Bean to have an impressive game. I'm kind of done with wondering or worrying about the Jalen Daniels situation. If he's hurt, he's hurt, and if he plays, he plays. We're fortunate enough to have Bean at center as a backup. Again, he's not the best quarterback in the league, but he's capable. And I think when he gets some consistent playing time, he improves throughout the season. So feel good about that. That's going to do it for this one. Again, you can find us over on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search at KCSA Pod. You can subscribe to us on Spotify if you like to listen on the go. Be sure to subscribe, follow us, and rate the podcast. But if you love watching the podcast, then continue to check us out over here on YouTube. Subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends. And then for all you Chiefs fans, do me a favor, go back and watch our Chiefs episodes with the guys from the Aftermath. They do some great work, and we'd love to see you support them a little bit more as we start diving into the important stretch of the season. The Chiefs are now 5-1 heading into week 6 with a lot of excitement. Charles Omenihu's coming back on the D-line. Offense is still struggling there, but we're playing fairly clean football. So don't forget to check them out at Aftermath_KC on Twitter. You can also, again, find them here on our YouTube channel anytime we post Chiefs content. That'll do it for this episode. Next week, we will probably, of course, have a recap of the Oklahoma State game. We will probably have recaps of Chiefs content. Chiefs are 10 days off, so we'll probably dive into a little bit of that. Might get a little bit of baseball talk. Probably going to talk some KU basketball next week too, with the findings that have now come out, and talk about some of that impact. And maybe we'll have a guest on to kind of break that down with us. But until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully KU shows up this weekend and we move to 6-1 and we go bowling. And until next time, guys, thank you, and rock chalk.
Rock chalk.